So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome and hand over to Daniel Hutzel. And I think Daniel is going to appear very shortly next to me in this Teams insert here. So give a virtual round of applause for Daniel when he comes on. I can see that Daniel's in here somewhere.
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Daniel, take it away.
Okay, thanks, DJ. And sorry that I don't share a live picture of me because actually, DJ, I really like your introduction and just blushed now. Yeah, great days in the 80s, last century, when we were in Smalltalk, and I actually liked you talking about things like beauty. You know, that was the times when we discussed about programming in terms like art, science, and beauty, in fact, and not like complex technical terms and things like microservices, hexagonal architecture, which are like, monsters. But actually, we did that stuff that time already. Okay, so I start sharing and start my keynote. And please let me know if something isn't as it should be with sound or with the presentation. I have slight echo, so sorry for this interruption. So, regarding CAP, first of all, I would like to start with that excerpt of the disclaimer slides you find at the end of each slide deck. So we would share a lot of information with you, giving you some previews, giving you also some outlooks. I'm especially known to not know what I'm supposed to say as an SAP employee or not. So I'm pretty open and share a lot of things. So what that means in this disclaimer is actually all you see and hear from us today. Don't take this as any kind of commitment or legal obligation that we would have. With that, let's get started with the agenda of what I'm planned to show in the keynote. I would start with sharing with you what our recent focus of the last couple of months was, which is much about improving quality and modularity of our implementations. And the latter is meant to give others a basis to add own features to CAP more easily, like Gregor, you started connecting to different platforms, connecting to different authentication services. I saw that and think you did a great job, but it should be much easier for you to do these kind of things. Same applies to the question which is frequently raised in the community, Twitter and the like, about how to connect to different databases. So we are very much working on that to make this much easier, and that is actually also the reason we didn't roll how to do this so far, because we wanted to make it much easier. I would go on with a bit of a recap of the features we built since TechEd, which some of you might have recognized, others maybe not, and pinpoint you to some maybe even hidden gems that not all really revealed when seeing our documentation, which has gaps, or the CAP samples, which have to be complemented. Then I would put a more focus on modularity, just sharing a glimpse of the basic things, what this means for us, and then hand over to Sebastian van Syckel, who will show you an example of, in that case, no, I don't tell now, so it's like a surprise. And then we I would conclude with having a look at our roadmap, our internal planning board for the roadmap, and share thereby an outlook to what will come in 2020, or we plan to have in 2020. So starting with CAPdate, or no, actually I wanted to start first with this roadmap. No, sorry for this cloud screen. What you see here is how we work internally. We use GitHub for close to all things around planning, tracking of action items, roadmaps, as in this case here, etc. By the way, the reason we decided to use GitHub for that from the very beginning was that we planned, and still do so, to go open source. And open source, GitHub is the tool that most people use. Now what you see here is like a Kanban board arranged in quarters. Quarter 1, 2, 3 of this year, and the main key topics in an aggregation way depicted that we did. Green means still ongoing, red means done, because it's just GitHub issues, what's behind that, and closed is done. And what you can see here also from these labels, what we focused on really beginning of this year was a lot on quality. So we have now quite some number of internal stakeholder projects at SAP, ranging from technology services like a security service of the cloud platform itself is now built with CAP. So we are not only for applications, but also for real technology stuff.
Sorry, Daniel, it's DJ here. Sorry to interrupt. We're just trying to figure out, there's some background noise. Possibly, do you have the Twitch stream playing at your end as well? If you could please mute that, then we're not getting the cycle through. And also, while we're at it, is it possible you could do a Control+ and bump up the font on your browser a little bit, or whatever it is in Safari, please?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you very much. This is our first online conference, but we're learning as we're going.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so better now also from the sound?
Yes, I think that's perfect. Thank you, Daniel.
Right, thanks. Yeah, so we invested a lot in improving our output qualification so that we don't send regressions to our projects, our stakeholders, our customers. Also affects you externally, of course. We actually use now certain project test suites as our output qualification. We streamlined our CAP release processes. I think you have recognized that. Now we have a roughly 4 weeks cycle, and we name the releases by the months of the year. Because CAP is actually today modular framework of different stacks, components, etc., and each has its own version numbering, and the overall numbers is then just the months. And we started adding release notes and change logs, so to give you more and clearer pictures of what is new when a new release comes out. And we invested a lot in the CAP samples, which I would show, and in the CAPdate documentation itself. Still going on this quarter, this cleanup and quality stuff. So the streamlined compiler is actually a big thing that we now finished in terms of improving quality and modularity. And we are currently doing the same in Node.js. And again, Sebastian van Syckel will give you a glimpse of what's going on there. So that's what we focused on, and this is also sort of reflected in what you see when you look into CAPdate, and starts with the release notes here. You really should have an eye on that whenever there's a new release note coming up. This is our internal variant of CAPhire. And in here, we already see the next upcoming release note, which we share with internal customers. And yeah, one important thing is that one. I can already share that with you. So we do a major version update in Node.js runtime. It's actually not incompatible at all, but it's a lot of new things in here which we thought should be symbolized by a major version update afforded. The other things which happened in CAPhire lately was, in case you didn't see this so far, we revamped the Getting Started in a Nutshell guide, just cleaned it up, added a few things. One of the things added is giving a bit more information about adding and serving UIs. And we also added, just to showcase that CAP is not locked in to a certain set of technology like Fiori and HANA only, which some people think. No, you can of course use CAP using a Vue.js app in that case, and I will show this in a few minutes. But still, of course, we do support Fiori, and Fiori is still the most recommended UI technology that we as SAP offer, and also CAP does a lot of work in that, because Fiori is a generic UI technology. And for most of the SAP application, at least in the cloud, extensibility is key. And you need a generic UI technology and a generic stack in general in order to be extensible, to add new fields, and allow your customers, your SaaS customers, add new fields. If you have a hard-coded part in your stack, that just doesn't work. Yeah, then we added also a bit more flash to the custom logic part, and then summary and next steps gave this handover to the other sections. First of all, in the getting started area, you should also have seen this project layouts and reuse, and in there, in particular, this managing dependencies, because we did this now, also beginning of this year, consequently used standard Semver and strong recommendations by NPM, and means we always ship with the open Semver ranges, which in turn means when you do an install, you always get our latest version and the dependent stuff. You should watch this if you are a Node.js project. Then we did some additions to Grow as you go and some cleanup. It's about this airplane mode and about mocking application service. I will come to that in some more detail. And then we had also an overhaul of the providing services section to give the common picture that applies to CDS, Java, as well as Node.js. And then in the reference sections for Java and Node.js, you see the different variants of that. And you also see today presentations by David, Sebastian for the Node.js stack, and Vitaly, as well as Mark and Adrian, I think, but you will see them for the Java stack. So that's about introducing news in CAPhire. Going on to CAP samples, which is sort of will become increasingly like a twin sister to CAPhire. Many people say we need more documentation. We need you to close the gap in documentation, and this is totally right. And many people also say, but give us samples, which are even more important than just documentation. Sometimes samples are better than documentation. So let's have a look at what we did here. So we cleaned them up. We had them all already at tagger time, but we cleaned them up a lot and changed the monorepo approach. So a monorepo means it's just one repository in GitHub, where you find subfolders which represent actually individual projects, which, if it would not be a samples summary thing, would even be independent GitHub projects and maybe even independent delivery units. So the cleaned up way doesn't use something like a learner that we used last year anymore, but has a very simplified setup. The key thing is basically the umbrella project, the parent folder, the root folder, acts like a local npm registry when you do the installs with this package JSON in front, and each individual project, which again is a standalone Node.js project in that case, has its usual own package JSON, and these kinds of links just work then relatively, and this is actually what monorepo are much about. They just save you a lot of time. Instead of having always to publish something in order to reuse it somewhere else in another project, we just do that locally. And by the way, this is the best practice that we would recommend to everybody of you. Modularize your work if you have larger projects into different GitHub repos, but actually put them all into one monorepo, because you save yourself a lot of time, even in team development. We shared this also with projects internally in SAP, and an increasing number now follows these best practices, and we get the feedback. This is really, really helpful to them to speed up their work. What it also allows you is to very quickly switch versions to check against last known goods of a reused component, etc. So in case you didn't so far, make yourself familiar with this approach and try it out. Regarding the cap samples, it's pretty easy to get them on your machine. Just git clone that, run npm install, and then you can start running the individual samples like Bookshop here, or the other parts, which I should also show in a second. We also added tests, A, for ourselves, B, as a best practice to share with you how we think you should do best tests. And this also links then to CI/CD, continuous delivery and continuous integration. And Christian Georgi actually this week added a CI integration to public GitHub, to this public GitHub repo. So you can also have a look at that, how that works. What it does, it's actually just executing the tests in here whenever somebody wants to merge into the master branch. So this is just the first start of sharing the best practices of CI/CD. We are currently working with the colleagues within SAP, with Cloud SDK, with the lifecycle management colleagues, to give you a more comprehensive enterprisey variant of that, sharing best practices, how to set up CI/CD. Now, getting started with the cap samples itself, I have it already cloned. By the way, cloning takes like 10 seconds or so, and it takes you 15 seconds until you are ready to run the samples. So I see the same welcome page here. You should pay attention to that link. It introduces the individual sub-projects which are in, also in terms of what they showcase, what parts of the documentation that cover. And the parts of the documentation are linked here and would open the respective CAPdate page in our documentation. That is just a starting point. We just did it in a hurry a few weeks back, and we'll revisit that and improve that and add more content to that increasingly, also with much focus in the next couple of weeks, which is according to our plans when we had this time. Now, let me quickly show you what things we have covered in here. It starts with a standard book shop, which shows how to get started with a project, starting from an empty project and doing CDS watch or running it. And yeah, so you could run it like that. That refers to that folder, or I stop it again. You can also run it with watch. Watch means whenever you do a change, the server would automatically restart using Noteman for that. And I need to mention that I added this when I saw a presentation of DJ when he used Noteman to do exactly that. So I thought it would be a good idea to deliver that out of the box. So that's our famous bookshop example, still pretty simple. Recently I added this genre thing, which demonstrates how to do hierarchies or hierarchical code lists. We will show some more on that. And we added, as I just introduced in the Getting Started, this Vue.js application. Yeah, looks like an application. Just lists the books, allows you to pick one and get some details below, and allows you also to order some books here. And thereby we can demonstrate that we also have this custom logic behind the scenes. You know, there's the actual order is written generically by us. This is the CAP generic service providers. And in addition, we see here that implementation of submit order, which in addition updates the book stock, so reduces the amount in stock by the amount ordered. And when the update returns with an affected row of 0, so n equals 0, then we say stock exceeded. Let's try this. Yeah, 500 books in stock, but fortunately our backends are not too slow, so we get this error message right now. 3 exceeds stock for book. Yeah, regarding not too slow, just to share maybe this one. Let's look at the, and increase it of course, at the network. When doing a request, let's just do another of these requests. So what's now happening, as we saw, is a batch request is sent. No, not a batch request, because this Vue.js. And in the backend, we create the order automatically, generically. Some checks are done, input validation, some authentication, and we update the stocks in addition, which takes this 2.3 milliseconds. Totally browser waiting time. So there's a minimum amount of network overhead, of course. But yeah, this is sort of our KPI. We want to stay for not heavy requests within the 1-digit milliseconds range. And this is the case still. Another information maybe to that is a part of the cleanup is to reduce that server time to less than 1 millisecond. And I think we are on a good way on that. So that's the typical way a CAP request looks like in terms of overhead. It's not too much overhead, and this makes us not too bad for cloud things, right? Going on with the Vue.js application. So this is our classical bookshop, as I said. We have the schema here with books and authors and genres defined.
Sorry, Daniel, it's DJ again. It's me again, annoying me. Could you just bump up the font on your VS Code a couple of notches, please? We're getting viewer requests who they can't see it very well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. And just remind me, as I tend to forget this.
Will do.
So genres derives from sub common code list, which we deliver with each CAP installation. It's a set of standard types that we thought are quite useful. And one is code list, because code list is so common in business applications, at least, or at least SAP application. So this is the declaration as you see here. By the way, what you see here is the CDS editor with the LSP support of VS Code, so language support for CDS, and also increasingly now these options like cross-browsing, giving you this preview flyovers, allowing you to printing your code. I just did so aligned all the columns and stuff. You can configure that, how it does that, etc. So I like this very much. So I can't use CDS without the CDS editor anymore. So we can also, as I said, navigate to that source. This is now opening the installed sub CDS, common CDS, which is just a CDS model that we deliver out of the box, containing these common definitions, like what is a language, a currency, a country, and also things like, we have it here, quite frequently you need to equip your business objects with things like created at, created by, and this is all done by this kind of reuse stuff. So that's our schema, and the code list, as we saw, is just saying each codes have a name and a description, and the actual code is defined by sort of the subclass genre. Genre says my code is called ID and should be an integer. And this is the hierarchy part. Genres have a parent genre and have a number of child genres. Quickly sharing one, I think, best practice for manual tests. What I frequently do in my daily work actually is using these HTTP files. They're just plain text files where you can put things like get URL with some additional parameters, also post and stuff, similar to Postman, if you know that. But meanwhile, I completely abandoned Postman and just using that because it's just more flexible because it's plain text. And what you need to do this, to use it is this REST client plugin of VS Code, which is also available in the Business Application Studio. By the way, all I show here is VS Code, but looking the same in the new Business Application Studio by SAP. And you get this by installing the samples, and we have some VS Code recommendations packed with the samples. So when you install the samples and open VS Code, you should get a pop-up recommending a set of plugins that, yeah, actually I found quite good. And this one was a tip by David Kunz, which you also see. So David is my source of good tips in that case. Yeah, so what we can do with that is we can just execute these requests in the browser, of course, but then it's not looking as good regarding reading responses. So we can do this send request on top here, and then we see the response on the right-hand side. Now this is just reading the genres, and it says it's not there. Did I drop something? Oh no, it's test genres. Sorry, my fault. Here we have it. So this is reading out the genres, and this test genres is doing the following. And I can just start it pretty simple by doing CDS serve. Serve is actually the background task behind watch and run, and serve allows me to pick individual files. And now I would pick the file bookshop test genre, which is that file here, and that just includes all the rest of the bookshop and adds a test service which only serves genres, just to have a separation in my services. And so it's running now. Now I should be able to execute these requests. And yeah, that one is a flat list. It's empty, the database, because I just started it and it's not the full bookshop. So let's fill it, and I fill it with a deep insert here. You see this nested structure. Each line is a genre, and the indentation means child. And this is just automatically, you get this from CDS automatically. CDS is very much, and the CAP runtimes, Node.js in that case, prepared to not just serve flat data, like from relational databases, we are very good at that, but in addition also structured data, like from document-oriented databases, and we even map the latter to the SQL world, so the flat relational world. So that one is just inserting full bunch of genre hierarchy, the response you see on the right-hand side. Oh. Yeah, this is a mistake, just ignore it. And then you would be able to also read it. I screw some things by experimenting lately, and I will not have the time to fix that right now. Back to, so I really recommend this REST client stuff. Back to the bookshop and looking at the Vue.js application. So what did we do to support Vue.js? Nothing, because we are just mainly a service framework, and we are a well-behaved service framework, looking and being consumable via OData protocol or via REST protocol. So whenever you have knowledge and tools to do AJAX requests from a client, of course you can consume our services. So let's start the bookshop again. Not the genres test service. Yeah, and so that one says just, hey, I use everything from the CAPdate common thing. I will come to that. And then I add this application, which consists in Vue.js, pretty simple, of an HTML page. That is just describing the layout. These kind of things are the binding of Vue.js, nothing special and nothing to promote it. No, I don't want to promote Vue.js, but just to share, yeah, you can use us as you would use any other backend in Vue.js. And that is the code that did this UI as we saw it here, to click around and do the orders. With submit order, actually just executing our queries. We use the OData protocol, so you can use OData from Vue.js because OData is just REST. Also demonstrating that, so no magic stuff required here, and also no library required here. So what I use here in this sample is really just the plain, simple Vue.js library without any addition, and a plain, simple Ajax library, which is Ajax in that case, and then pretty simple style sheet. So that's about that. Another thing is the this tiny little sub-project. So what is that about? It's just this folder common, consists of a package JSON, just saying I'm CAPdate common, an index CDS, which imports stuff from sub CDS common, so it doesn't have a dependency to anything else. And what it does is it extends the currencies definition from our built-in common stuff with a few additional fields like numcode, the easier numcodes, exponent like cent, dollar, etc. So cent for dollar or cent for euros, and the minor, which is the string of that. That is just is it 2 or more digits. Here it also shows how one could extend the predefined code list of countries with additional code lists for regions and cities and districts, and wire these code lists to each others by, in that case, extending countries with an association, or actually a composition of regions, which refers to the newly introduced entity. So this just sort of demonstrating, first of all, the power of CDS aspects, which is a lot about this extend and annotate stuff. You just can extend everything. And also demonstrates what verticalization would be about. So the idea is We deliver predefined types for currencies, which are very simple, very to the minimum by intent. We don't want to give you a very complicated definition of currencies, but it's just a simple two-field thing. But everybody can just add extension packages to that and share this with the community. So it could be an organization in SAP that provides currencies full-fledged for whatever, and share this as another reuse packages that a third party can just reuse. So we are a party providing sub-CDS common. Another party provides this predefined extension package, could share it via npm publish. And a third one, like that bookshop application, decides to use our sub-CDS common plus, so using sub-CDS plus this CAPdate common package from a third party, and just use it in the model. And this is the effect of what you see here. These currencies that we have here, and also when we later on see the Fiori applications, the code list is actually provided by that package. Here we have the code list and the entries, the data for these different currencies. That is not in our base package, not in that way. So that is just to really tease it, but this is a really important topic. It's about verticalization over different levels up to the customer and the SaaS tenant. And this is what projects in SAP now increasingly use, and CAP is helping them to build these kind of things in a gradual way, in an expansive way, and not in a way that somebody has to say, hey, I have to add all the potential uglinesses that somebody might need, like the last 10% as well, and come up with a very complex thing. But you can provide your reuse consumers with very streamlined core packages and a bunch of extension packages that your consumers can decide to switch on or not. Fiori is still there, of course, and even getting more attention, and we will add a lot of more samples with Fiori. Fiori is still our main focus. In that case, we just took it as another application. It is based on Bookshop, so it reuses Bookshop. It reuses also Common, and which was just thought, and we reuse orders just to demonstrate somebody could also build a microservice architecture. So Bookshop has the catalog service and the admin service, and some other project might contribute the order service, which means they would just add the notion of orders somewhere and add another service that provides these orders. And this is what CAP services are about. CAP services are what we call them nano services, because you usually have a lot of services served by one process, and one process is one microservice. Microservices are bigger than CAP services. They are deployment units. Yeah, and what we did here is this Fiori application combines the basic Bookshop services plus these order services, and adds the actual model are just sort of importing that also here. And the Fiori application decided to add a special event handler to some things in the basis. Before ordering new books, we do some calculation in addition. So we just add primary keys by that. And the final thing can be run as always. I usually prefer the CDS watch. By the way, I need to have an eye on the time. And now you have again the admin service here and the catalog service, the browse service exposed at the endpoint browse. And in addition, we see the order service exposed at this endpoint, where you can also browse and maintain orders. And the Fiori application just uses this. Here you can browse the books, meant for end users, and all critical information protected. Nobody can see as an end user critical information because we separated services for end users and administrators, and manage books and manage orders. So we have 3 services, 2 coming from one project, 1 from another project, combined into 1 microservices, all as 3. We can also later on say we run the bookshop in a separate microservice because it's prepared as a separate project to be also separate deployable, and then communicate via remote consumption. And this is what we provide also as CAP. It's pretty easy to put things in one service and communicate between the services in the very same way as they would communicate if they are separated into processes. You will see this also in David's showcase. What I want to show you here is, of course, we support all these fancy stuff about search, which means you can search for something and we search automatically in all text fields, even in deep document structures. Was not that easy to build, by the way, but of course very valuable for UI guys. And then also you have these things like draft. You can filter by draft state. We don't have any unchanged. We don't have any own drafts, but we have all delivered here. And also Fiori meanwhile provides these things like I can search for ranges. I think it's like that. To 13 amount of price. No, it's not like that. Don't remember how to, yeah, it is like that. Yeah, and we support all these things via basic or data filtering stuff. A thing we added lately is we combined our built-in support for draft. So first of all, draft means it supports editing, and you can start editing sessions, and the state of your editing session is served in the server and stored in the server. So you can have this editing started. You can enter some stuff here, some changes here. I can close my browser, open it again, and continue to work on what I just did, hopefully. In a completely new browser, could also be a different device. Yeah, the draft is here. I can continue to work on that. I'm still in editing, and my change stock was changed to 123, still there. So that works out of the box. It's like Apple hands-off, where you can change from device to device and continue your work later on. A Fiori feature, which is very, very difficult to implement in the backend. I said a ticket. I think the CAP team is the second in the world who achieved it. The first one was the ABAP team, and they had quite some time for that. Now we added also support, out-of-the-box support for the combination of localized data. So you see we serve localized data out of the box at CAP. If I switch my preferred browser language from English to German, I would see that text and that title wherever I browse that. And we now supported that you can automatically add these kinds of things, add additional languages, change the translation in a table-like fashion with automatic value help, as we just saw for the code lists of locales here. This was also not an easy game, and also, by the way, for the other colleagues, which we talked a lot to. But it's just now supported out of the box. That's a message. The good news is you won't see anything in your application, and the bad news for us is you don't even see how much work it was, because you just don't have to do anything, just is there and works. So if I save this and browse back, and actually I'm browsing in English and I added English, I should see this blah 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 now showing up. Yeah, here it is. So automatically applied. So this was the draft and localized data. I mentioned verticalization, the tests I wanted to share. By the way, how much time do I have left? I'm really completely unorganized.
Daniel Volker here, you have about half an hour left.
Okay, yeah. So these are the tests. It's just, actually the recommendation is put your tests in a folder called test singular. Singular is important because what we do here is we support tests which you could run with Mocha or with Chest. I think these are the two major test runners in the Node.js camp. Mocha is a bit more streamlined, Chest is a bit more comprehensive. I use Mocha for individual tests. I have this test runner here. I screwed something. Its test is not defined. Yeah, that's correct. And with that, I can easily, for example, just run individual tests and see, well, that one failed for some reason, and jump to that things and go around. What is unfortunately not possible with Mocha is run all the tests in one run. So I can run it, but some fail. But this failure is just because Mocha doesn't isolate individual test runs, but Chest does. You find that information also on the README pages. So what we do for our CI/CD tests, we use Chest, because there you want to run our tests. Yeah, look at these tests. I don't have the time to go into detail. It's using the standard stuff here with describe and these expect languages and these assertion things. I use Chai. Chai is a package in the mostly known in the Mocha context, but it is actually independent from Mocha and can be used also with Chest. So this is just a matter of preference. You can also use the Chest way of doing this kind of things and run it even with Mocha. So Node.js world is very flexible there. Yeah, message is have a look at these tests. Now let me go back to a few things that I have on my slides, and then I would hand over to Sebastian. What we spend a lot of work in, and you have recognized it likely, is to streamline development, not only for us when we are on stage and tag it and it's just fun, but really a lot of projects, fat big projects, multi-team projects adopted this best practice meanwhile, and enjoy the benefits, and actually also allows them to speed up their tests a lot. So what they did is really jump-starting project with CDS in it. They don't start anymore, as they did 2 years ago, by setting up their cloud platform landscape. But they simply start off a certain development team to just do development, do some CDS model, run the services immediately, add custom logic later on, etc. Things we usually show on stage, they really work like that meanwhile, and have another team start to set up the cloud platform landscape so they can deploy to that later on when they are done with their work, with the development work. This means they parallelize. One team starts development, jump-starting development, and the other team cares about setting up the delivery platform, but it's a delivery platform, not a development platform. So there's no need to always develop in the cloud when you develop for the cloud. Actually, it's just much work, additional work. Then we accelerate with CDS Watch. As we saw, we can change things and it immediately would restart instead of us having to remember. We integrate with CDS Import. I just can quickly showcase that. I think I have Watch still running and it's in the Fiori application. So let me just demonstrate the following. I downloaded from API Hub an OData EDMX definition here, the API business partner from S4 actually. And I would just drop it somewhere here in my project, don't care where. And CDS Watch bookshop I wanted to show. In my project, which is the bookshop folder. Somebody screwed everything here. The OData v4 parser. Okay, So what I would have shown is it automatically imports stuff and throws the imported stuff into this external folder in EDMX and converts it to CSON so I can immediately use it. David will show this also in detail. Then use SQLite as a database with the in-memory option allows you to avoid all the overhead of managing your persistent database. You have this immediate setup tear-down effect of development and tests. And parallelize with mocks, so run the imported stuff, the business partner, and connect to the business partner, not by connecting to the real S4 system, but run this S4 service as a mock served by CAP locally. David will also show that. Saves you a lot of round trips work, and only when you are done with your functional thing, then you of course do the integration test with the real backend S4. And only when you are done and really require that, you should think about deploying something to the cloud, like the HANA database, and connect to that, or your real services into microservices on the cloud to test drive the production-like environment. And then you would set up CI/CD to do that automatically, and not manually. You wouldn't. No project really deploys manually to the cloud. And only when you reach that point and you want MTA, for example, you would use CDS-add to just add MTA. So we didn't have any MTA file so far. And wherever you are in your project, you can do CDS-add MTA and say, now I'm reaching that point in time where MTA would be really helpful because it automates some deployment steps. And then we give you the MTA with all the information collected from your project that you added so far, your CAP services, etc., your required services from S4. And with that, you can then start off and use and manage your MTA going on. And the last one is what I showed with this common package. Oops, something is automatically going back. Reuse and extend with standard NPM dependencies. So reuse is of CAP modules is based on NPM dependencies and are using CDS stuff. Things I would just share with that slide here is we had a lot of changes in addition in the CDS language and compiler, extending with named aspects. It's much about this verticalization thing, extending projections, etc. Yeah, I'm really running out of time. Should have a dry run before. Maybe we can do it at the end of the day in the drinking session. I have prepared some demo pieces of that one as well. And also manage composition. Really just quickly, manage compositions is like that. You saw these orders here, and this is a usual relational way of modeling deep structures. Orders has order items, which is a composition of another entity. Managed associations allow you to express this very same thing just like that. And you can leave out all these join condition and on condition and the parent back pointers, because that is now done by us behind the scenes. We will generate this entity for flat databases, relational databases, while for NoSQL databases, MongoDB, we will just map it to document structures. So there's no need anymore to pollute your, the pollution of your domain model with relational artifacts is continuously reduced by us. The structural data is in a similar camp. So we do a lot of flattening also because the Fiori clients have a quite relational view on their backends, while other clients of APIs might rather be interested in the structured view. So this is what we call A2X, APIs to not UIs only, but to other services. And we do support the structured data, which doesn't do the flattening and has really structured representations of references, associations, etc. Yeah, would need much more work and time to go into the details on that. That one is this aspects thing I showed. I would have shown by doing the code with you. If you look at this second line here, an entity foo annotated as bar, inheriting in quotes from CUID and managed, which are predefined types, and declaring an element called bar, which is of type car. And then in the next lines, we do the very same. So bool, at the end of the day, is the exact same definition, just with a different name. And here we show how CDS behind the scenes actually works. It's all about aspects. So we define an empty definition of entity. We extend it with all we find in CUID, which is the primary key. We extend it with all we find in managed, which is created by, created at, with a lot of annotations, even header level annotation. Then we extend it with additional field, bar, of type car, and then we annotate that final thing with bar. So this is exactly creating the same definition. And when we have such a definition, we can just do the same story again, create a new entity and extend it with like a template entity like boo. I could have also chosen foo. Then moo looks exactly like boo or foo. And this is what we want to share. It's this what we called extend with named aspects. This is actually the genome of how CDS works behind the scenes. Sometimes things look like inheritance, like this column COID managed, like multiple inheritance. But behind the scenes, it's not inheritance, it's aspect-oriented programming. Compared to inheritance, this is like inheritance is both an errors, and aspect-oriented programming is like a nuclear power weapon. Focus on modularity, and this is where I hand over to Sebastian. I hope you have read the about pages and know about this CAP paradigm, and the thing we really stress and now implement, and Java did implement it already. They had a head start. In Node.js, we do have the APIs in shape, so we don't need to change the APIs incompatibly, but we do rework the implementations behind the scenes, so Node.js would get much smaller, allowing you to plug in things like additional implementations for different databases. And just to stress the key terms that the CDS paradigm is about, it's all about services. Services are frequently and mostly described in models, but we can also go without models. Everything in CDS, every active thing is a service. There's nothing active which is not a service. All implementation of services is in event handlers. This is the right-hand side. This is handlers that you could write or we do write. We do provide generic handlers. You can also provide generic handlers or your specific handlers for your very specific cases. And everything which happens at runtime is events. So services always just react on events by executing the event handlers, the registered event handlers. And we are very powerful when it comes to queries. So events is also equals request. A request from a UI for us is just another kind of event. And we blur the line between asynchronous and synchronous events. And in case of requests, they can also carry queries, like including select, filter, order by, and stuff in the standard ways, like in OData or in GraphQL, which we did some fun things. Okay, and that one is showing the big picture. Now I hand over to Sebastian to show the Postgres part. Sebastian, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
So, it's yours.
So, hello. Yeah, I have prepared a sneak peek of what these adding your custom service implementations would look like with the example of Postgres. So I hope you can hear me fine. Hope the screen resolution is okay. Again, disclaimer in the beginning, so not a commitment, a promise, or anything to deliver anything, right? But yeah, so let's go on with the demo. So I have this PG bookshop which is based on the bookshop we all know. Very reduced scope, so I only have books and authors here. I have my admin service, which just exposes both of those. No authentication and authorization for this demo. And then I have in my admin service JS the after handler we know that adds the 11% discount to overstocked books. And my CSRC JSON, where I now have a slightly different format. So you can please ignore the Postgres for now. We have requires DB kind SQLite. And then down here you have the SQLite section that has the members as you know them. So we have the models in SRV, and we have our bookshop DB as the database. And I deployed that already, so I can now just run it, see that it works, right? We have some HTTP requests here, so I'm going to get some books, and here they are. So of course that was a little bit boring, and now we're going to switch to the interesting part. So again, going back to our CDSRC JSON, we see here already we also have defined a Postgres. And this entry looks, also has the models. We have, again, some credentials where we want to connect to. And now this is the all-important one. It says it points to a JS file where the implementation is for this Postgres service.
Sebastian,
so,
I need
I have it here.
to interrupt quickly. It seems that the screen share is on pause. So would you probably unshare and share?
I can do that, yeah. So I unshared, sharing again. Can you see it now?
Still coming up on our end.
Now it's here.
Here, okay. So how much were you able to see?
I think we panned out at the point where you mentioned the Postgres configuration.
Okay. So then we are here, right? So we have in the requires section, we now have this entry Postgres that has, again, a model and credentials like we know from SQLite, but it has especially this impl member that points to JS file where the implementation of the service is. And then we're now going to take a look at that one. And this is just some debugging stuff, a function that will run queries. And now here's the all-important way how to create your own service based on the new core service that will be featured in an upcoming release that you will find at cds.service.
Okay,
and
so
what we have to do,
I need to squeeze in again. Again, it seems that your share is off. So we're still stuck at the CDSRC JSON.
Okay, maybe I'll try turning off my camera. Maybe that will help. Not sure. So can you see my screen now again?
Not yet.
Okay. I mean, what we could do is just I'll show it later on, maybe sometime if I'm having problems right now.
So it seems that the share is not coming through. Probably retry it, because I think especially the additional database modules is one of the things everybody has been waiting for. So I don't want to spoil.
Okay, then I guess I'll maybe hijack sometime in a later slot.
What we could also try is I could share it, Sebastian, if I quickly find it, and then you can talk it.
I have some modifications I didn't commit yet.
Okay.
So, or maybe what I can also do is I can try to share my entire screen instead of just the VS Code. Maybe that was the issue.
Yeah, do that, please.
So yeah, I'm sharing the entire screen now. I guess this was bound to happen, Murphy's Law.
Still nothing coming through, sorry.
Okay, yeah, very sorry. Then I would propose to hijack 10 minutes from the Java modularized CAP slot later on this afternoon, or any other one. And sorry about that.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion in my opinion. Nothing more we can do right now, I guess.
Yeah, we all like cliffhangers anyway. That's good. It makes it more exciting.
Okay, then I guess I'm handing back over to Daniel.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we should really show this. This is really a pity. This was the highlight. So
we will.
how is the timeline? So we have 10 to 11, and the next session would start when, Volker?
We would have the next session on at 11:15, so you have at least 10 minutes left.
Okay, so I can entertain you, just you're not bored. Yeah, so what Sebastian was really showing is actually our cleaned up core consists of roughly 4 files. One is called service.js, another is called query.js, and another is called event request.js. And Sebastian showed and started to show and would have shown you the code right now how to implement a service from scratch, even completely new kind of service implementation. And this is the way how you would add things like on that picture, different database drivers.
Sorry, Daniel. Just in case you're sharing something on your screen, we can't see your screen. So if you could please share or reshare it, thank you.
Confused with the sharing issues, right? You see my screen now?
Yes, perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I was just showing again this thing, how to implement a service. So how would you implement a database driver for a different database? And the answer is the same way as you would implement whatever service in CAP. You just create even a CDS model. You can add a CDS model for your driver. You register it the same way as any other service in CAP that you would want to consume. And you just add a bunch of event handlers like service on my database service on begin, commit, rollback, insert, update, delete, because these are the events that we send to database services. And you just implement these database services by handling the events we send to them. This is how our own SQLite drivers and our own HANA drivers work. And this is actually the key message. CAP is built with CAP, you could say. And we share with you, and therefore we need to clean up a few ugly things in our implementation, how we build CAP so that you can build your own derivatives of CAP, adding own authentication services. Authentication is also a service. Authorization services. A messaging service. You can build your own messaging services if you like. So doing enterprise messaging, Kafka or whatever, or your database services. And this is actually like the menu picture of CAP. On the lower hand, you see this inner core. Again, it's about services, events, and queries. Plus, we have a quite deep down notion already there of what is a transaction. Transaction doesn't necessarily mean asset, like in databases, but it's rather a unit of work where we need to make sure we do things like principal propagation, tenant isolation, pool management, and classical database transaction management. And all the other service and the extensions of that core stuff on top, like in the blue and green parts, are just plugging into that notion of what is a transaction. They are just plugging in their event handlers to their services to handle the queries that we capture as CQN objects. So this is why we capture all these things in object-like objects. Yeah, the blue parts are all the generic stuff we do. And all this generic stuff is usually just a bunch of event handlers that we add to the standard services we bootstrap and construct based on the models information of services you give us, including all the generic CRUD handlers, including all the deep document handling with deep inserts, deep updates, upserts, deletes. The Java colleagues will go into much detail on that, by the way. Again, the Java colleagues already implemented that design from the inner start and will share this. Media types, the authentication currently is in Java used from Spring to much extent, and in Node.js a bit screwed in, and we are just cleaning that up. Actually, Sebastian was also working on that to make it more modular, to be itself just a very technical service that we serve.
Hey, Daniel, it's DJ again. We're going to try, if that's okay with you, we're going to try and bring Sebastian in again.
Okay.
He's restarted, and we'll try with Sebastian now.
Take over, please, immediately.
Thanks.
Okay, so I hope now you can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So yes, this is the Postgres.js file where we export a class Postgres database that extends our CDS service. And it looks very minimal right now. We have an init function that we would call. It's basically the same, acts like a constructor, but you don't have to invoke super then. Then we have some acquire and release functions that you can implement if you have a pooling service. In this demo, Postgres is not going to be pooling. And then we have begin, commit, and rollback that you can implement. You don't have to. So we will, following duck typing, we'll check if it's there. If it is, then we'll invoke it at the correct time. If not, we'll just proceed. And what you can see here already is that this looks a lot like just eventing. So the commit function is called. Then what does it do? We just emit the commit event on ourselves here. What else we are doing in the init, and this is where basically the logic is. So first, we're going to create a client using the credentials that we saw in the CDS-RC JSON. If you need it, this .model would be the season. For this demo, we don't. And now you see, again, stuff that looks a lot like eventing, and especially it looks like the custom handlers that you write for your products, in projects. So we have simply a this on begin, we're going to do stuff. On commit or rollback, we're going to do stuff. And we're following the same signature. We also get just this request object handed into us. And down here is actually the event handlers for our CRUD events that we're going to have in the demo. So insert, select, update, delete, which will just defer to the _run function that's outside of this class definition. And everything else is not supported. So once we reach down here, so none of the event handlers up here have terminated finalized the event execution. We're just going to say, okay, sorry, we don't have anything that we can do on this event that you have. And what we see up here in the run, just for completion's sake, is really not much. We're just going to debug output what we're doing. And on the first try, on the first run, we'll set up the connection with dbc connect, and otherwise we'll just run the query that gets provided by us. Of course, this is something you have to do, is transform our CQN, so our query notation, to the CQL to the SQL that you need for your database. Okay, then I'll go back to my CDS-RC JSON. So now what I'm going to do is just say, okay, I don't want to use kind SQLite anymore. I'm going to use kind Postgres. So again, of course, I did the deploy beforehand, right? So we do not do deploy in this demo right now. I created the database and the content already. And yeah, we can see maybe put a breakpoint somewhere. Oh, sorry, for a breakpoint, I have to run it with the launch here configuration. Let's see, where do we want to break? Maybe here in this run function before we execute. So again, I can get some books, and you will see I reached my breakpoint here. Just gonna run the query against the Postgres database, and then also I get my data in here. And we can do this for not only gets, of course, but we can create some stuff. So, oops. So let's say we're gonna create a new author, j&s-soft GmbH. Create that one, got it in the database. We'll create a new book, maybe the Recap 2020. We have that in our database now. So if we fetch again the books and the authors, let's say the books, we will find it down here at the bottom. Yeah, all this sorts of stuff. And now what I want to show you actually is that this implementation does not have to be a local file. This could also be, or at least that's what we're working on right now, this could also be the name of a other node module that you got from NPM. So this could be a community Postgres service that you reference here in this impl. But then somebody else provides the service, and you also want to maybe put some event handlers into that. And this is what I'm showing right now with, oops, sorry, I have to rename here. This server.js that we look for, where you can add some stuff on bootstrapping, for example. And now what I'm doing here is I'm acting on the served event that CDS emits once all services are served. And I say I want to get the service called DB. And now I'm going to say DB before commit. I want to do some stuff. So I want to add in my project a before commit handler that is executed during the commit processing of some community database adapter. So here I say, okay, I'm going to do some integrity check. As you can see, it's a very good integrity check. It will basically never let an error go to the database. And now I'm going to show you that one. So again, restart the server. We found this here. And now I'm going to do an update on one of the books that I have. So let's say, okay, I forgot the Heidelberg in the author. So I'll send this one. Okay, running integrity checks, looks good, commit, done. So now you could see that basically this community, this Postgres could be provided by community, by SAP, whatever. And then nevertheless, you as an app developer for your own project have the possibility to add some handlers to these database services, the same as you can do right now for the services that you now expose, like the admin service or the catalog service. Okay, I think this was a very quick run through due to time. So it's 1 minute till. I guess I'll end the demo here right now, and we can, of course, look at this then later on during other sessions or the gathering in the evening.
Great, thanks, Sebastian.
So from my point of view, there's the most relevant question from the chat that I want to relay immediately is there an ETA on the Postgres adapter?
Yes, is there a legal obligation if I answer that question? Yeah, we plan to roll this out in this quarter.
So the
ability to do
capability
these
of
things.
writing one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The ability to do these things. Just to share that, we are still not supposed to provide Postgres support out of the box. This is by SAP strategy, by our management. So, but we can share how to do that, and we can pave the path to make it as easy as possible for you or anybody else to do so. So we would go into an open source, inner source game on that.
Okay, so this sounds like a plan for the beer and code session at 4:30 CST.
Right. So just make us drunk, and then we do everything you want, right? Okay. I think the session is through, right? We are now going into the break, or.
Yeah, that's the plan right now. So that was awesome content. Thanks a lot, Daniel. And also, I think representing the community, thanks for your openness to show so much code. Much appreciated and exactly intended for this unconference style.
Right.
And without further ado, I'd announce the short 15 minutes breaks now. And at 11:15, Gregor will introduce the next session.